Hello, History Hatters. To kick off African American History Month, I thought we'd begin with a fellow Kansan, Langston Hughes. After returning from a trip to Africa and Europe, 22-year-old Hughes came to Washington broke, looking to move in with his mother and brother who were staying with their cousins near Howard University. Now, Hughes's cousins were descendants of John Mercer Langston, who served as the dean of the law school for Howard University and also served as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. His family set him up with civil rights activist Mary Church Terrell to try to find work in the Library of Congress. Now, those efforts proved unsuccessful, but Langston Hughes eventually found work on U Street. Here, at 1353 U Street, he worked at the Washington Sentinel selling advertisements. Hughes disliked selling ads, so he found a higher-paying job in a laundromat in Dupont Circle, but his cousins felt that that type of work was beneath him. So, Hughes and his mother and brother rented an apartment in Dupont Circle, in the second story of this brick townhouse behind me, still today located at 1749 S Street Northwest. The apartment was unheated, so they could only afford one oil stove, which they passed between them from room to room to keep each other warm throughout the cold winter. This unsatisfactory arrangement affected Hughes's writing. As he wrote in the Big C, "I felt very bad in Washington that winter, so I wrote a great many poems. I wrote only a few poems in Paris because I had such a good time there, but in Washington, I didn't have a good time. I didn't like my job, and I didn't know what was going to happen to me. And I was cold and half hungry, so I wrote a great many poems. I began to write poems in the manner of the Negro blues and the spirituals." Sometime in 1925, Hughes moved northeast of Dupont to the Greater U Street Historic District and lived in a small room at the 12th Street YMCA so he could work full-time on the manuscript of his first novel, The Weary Blues. In September of 1925, Hughes moved back to this house to live again with his mother and brother. When Hughes moved back to Dupont, he began working as a busboy in the Ward Parkman Hotel. It was there, while serving famous poet Vachel Lindsay one night, that he mustered the courage to drop 3 of his own poems. Hughes's encounter with this famous poet is part of how he got his big break and became the poet that he is today. Lindsay immediately recognized Hughes's talent, and he told reporters that he just met a busboy poet. And that's why in Washington, there's a chain of restaurants and bookstores called Busboys and Poets. On January 15th, 1926, Hughes performed a pre-publication reading of his first book, The Weary Blues, in the building behind me at 1814 N Street Northwest in Dupont. The building used to be called the Playhouse, which was a private club. Hughes moved to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania shortly after his reading. So, although his time in Washington was brief, his activities in Dupont were significant to his artistic legacy. Click the History Hat logo below and continue to explore the mysteries of history.